Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I'm Retty4, this is Greyjoy91.
Hello.
This is Evan95.
I am here, and since Antoine is not, I solemnly swear I am up to no good.
And this is Jenserai1.
We received your message and enclose your Christmas present from Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia.
A 50p piece, which I meant to get before we started this, actually, so I could show you guys.
I was wondering about that. Like, what is that actually worth?
Oh, I do actually have one for enough. Perfect. It is this.
What's that actually worth?
It is worth 50p.
I know. What in American
of course,
money,
we
what
can
is that?
see it.
Basically, it's the equivalent
Oh my
of giving
god, you
him
can't
2
see me.
quarters.
Damn it! Oh,
Yeah,
I keep forgetting that, yeah, because we record these.
we'll see it in
I-
post.
It's basically the equivalent of
post.
sending Harry 50 cents. They gave him 2 quarters, basically.
This
Yes.
is best present that they ever give him, I think.
Yes, yeah.
They gave
He
him
specifically
money.
says, "Oh, that's friendly."
They gave him a used tissue at one point, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, they do.
Something like
Or
that.
they
I think,
Yeah.
it's
Tissue, if
after
not a used one.
I think it's after their
Tissue.
living room is blown up or something like that, which I guess is understandable. But I mean, anyway.
Anyway, back on
so
track.
This is chapter,
Apologies.
Yeah, this is chapter 12, The Mirror of Erised. It's Christmas time, and Harry gets sent like a really awesome present that he uses to gallivant around the school at night. And he makes an interesting discovery while he's out doing that. That's the basic summary of this chapter. So let's get into this, guys.
Yeah, we open up with the lead in into Christmas because Christmas is coming, and this is when we fully get the the nice transition to the proper Hogwarts grounds while snowing. It's a wonderful chapter in for that alone because as with the film, it shows you like a lot of the visuals that you can get from an ancient castle in winter. It's a beautiful sight. I particularly love the Hedwig's flight straight through the courtyard in the film. But yeah, we also have to start with the fact that this is the part where the book that the twins attack the turban with the enchanted
You mean they attacked
snowballs.
Voldemort?
They enchant.
Yes.
Yeah, they enchant some snowballs to follow Quirrell around and pelt them in the back of the head.
The ultimate preemptive strike.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amusing to consider because this is the Dark Lord of I'm about to say Dark Lord of the Sith. Then this is the Dark Lord being pelted with snow by a bunch of
How
two
the
teenage twins.
mighty have fallen.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder. Like, I imagine Harry told them about like what happened with Quirrell. So like, I wonder what the twins like thought of that. Like in
They
retrospect.
probably just laughed because it's the twins. But yeah,
Probably.
if indeed it ever came up early enough in the book for them to remember.
They were probably when they realized what they did. They were probably very, very happy to have done it, but knew better than to admit that they did it. Otherwise, Voldemort might turn up at their joke shop and say, "Hey guys, so you totally smacked me in the face with those snowballs 5 years ago."
Yeah, I don't think he's going to write down that
ruin your
particular
day.
grudge. But speaking of grudges, we pass on into the potions class with which can basically be summed up with Malfoy's a dick. Talking about how Harry has no family to go home to, which he really doesn't care about because, well, I mean, he cares about the family. That's kind of the entire point of the chapter. But he doesn't care about the fact that he can't go home to the Dursleys because, why would you want to? And that's followed
I
up
do
with a
feel
nice,
so sorry for all those people who have to stay at Hogwarts for Christmas because they're not wanted at home.
Yeah, it was the wrong jab, really. We should have aimed for the fact that, because they are, they're orphans. I mean, he's definitely going to be low enough for that blow. But,
Well, I mean, it makes sense. Nobody understands exactly how terrible the Dursleys are, including Malfoy. So.
But yeah, they head up from the potions class and they find Hagrid dragging one of 12 giant Christmas trees into the Great Hall. Again, it's another one of those visuals I just love. Imagining Hagrid kind of the way she describes it as well. Hagrid kind of submerged under the back of this tree as he drags it along up the stone steps. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean,
They've
in the
done
film, you see him like using a rope and like slinging it over his shoulder.
Yeah.
It's a very cool visual for it, and yeah, we get another scene that basically can be summed up by both Snape and Malfoy are dicks, and we lead into the Great Hall and we see the wonderful Christmas decorations for the first time that Mrs. French Fleur Delacour could not tolerate apparently. Gorgeous scene, gorgeous setting. They make the Great Hall even more beautiful than it already was, which is nice to see.
And it's another instance of the Great Hall set, even though it doesn't capture the ambient, the scale of the Great Hall from the book. It does perfectly capture the ambience and the aesthetic because in the movie those decorations are gorgeous. And I just love seeing Professor Flitwick there levitating Christmas ornaments up onto the tree.
Yeah, it's just amusing. It's whimsical and enchanting, and I love the kind of just the description of it all. But we also get
everybody loves Christmas,
Of course, well, most people, yeah. Everyone who's sane.
Now we're gonna get bad comments.
Yep.
No, I don't like Christmas, and I'll tell you why.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway,
who cares about those people?
Christmas
at Hogwarts.
We don't care. Yeah.
Christmas at Hogwarts, regardless, is magical. Specifically at Hogwarts, if nothing else. But
Christmas is an excuse for a party. Why would you pass up an excuse for a party?
Especially in a castle.
I don't like parties, and here's why. I'm gonna tell you why. Yeah.
But yeah, we get the resurfacing of Nicholas Flamel into the chapter, or the book, I suppose, as Hagrid is commenting on it. You're a bit keen, aren't you, going to the library at your Christmas holiday break, or the start of it? They've been basically researching the character, the person, the name they have heard and do not know who it is. I like the fact that they don't know for a very specific reason. It's both subtle foreshadowing and a logical explanation for why they didn't immediately find him looking up famous wizards, because they were looking for modern dated famous witches and wizards rather than the people from hundreds of years ago when he was originally going to become prominent in the community. I like that that's a kind of little it makes sense. Basically it's foreshadowing and it makes sense. It's nice that when that happens.
The funny thing is, the other funny thing is the fact that Nicholas Flamel is actually a real historical figure that they basically just decided, okay, he was a wizard and he's totally still alive because he succeeded in making the Philosopher's Stone. And the funny thing is that it's later joked, hey, Hermione, it'd be safe to ask your parents who Nicholas Flamel is. And Hermione's like, very safe. They're both dentists. Yet the irony is that there's actually a fairly decent chance that her parents might have known because Nicholas Flamel is known to Muggles.
But not as a wizard.
Not as a wizard. Not as a sorcerer, which is what a sorcerer's stone makes no sense. But yeah, you're right. It does fit that and make sense. It would have been funny if she had.
And only if they're like very well read because they don't have the internet.
Oh yeah, it's very
true. Well, the thing is that they're dentists. Dentists had to go to college.
Studying Nicholas Flamel? Maybe not.
Everyone has to take a history class at some point. But anyway, we're also introduced to Madame Pince, the librarian.
Yes, yeah, a very background character, but she comes up for enough to be worthy of note for sure. Everyone's had a librarian like this. It's basically the archetypal, stereotypical librarian. Beyond that.
My librarian was worse than this. I can tell you that with certainty.
Really?
The ultimate irony is that my librarians at my school have all been very, very nice, warm-hearted people whom I actually liked talking to.
Mine could have created Horcruxes, I think.
That's why they were so protective of the library.
Oh dear.
That's why they're so protective of the library.
Miss Bean, the friendly neighborhood cat lady, there's no way she could create a Horcrux.
You're just being biased now just because she likes cats. I think
that theme's going to have appeared by now in these chapters.
Anyway,
but yeah, the holiday start.
Harry tries to get into the restricted section, and Madame Pince shoos him away, and that's when the holiday starts.
Yes, yeah. The holiday start, and we get the nice description of the comfortable dormitory, the comfortable setting of Hogwarts. The roasting food by the fire, the snowball fights outside, which come up many times throughout the series. It's basically all the stuff that you would want to hear and read about as a child, because that's what she's kind of trying to capture in these moments, the joy of the celebration of Christmas. Because again, it's an example of one of those so relatable capturable.
Just getting up in the morning as a kid, going down, seeing the tree. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and add to the fact that it's Hogwarts, it just makes it all the more enjoyable. So she always capitalizes on the holiday sequences in these books to great effect.
And also, I like the little details about how they're specifically happy they have it to themselves because, they're little kids, and so they don't, how bigger students are, this is my chair and I'm not ever getting out of it. They finally get to, really have the room, their run of the room and do whatever they want in it. That's nice. And
the funny thing is as well that they will then, as with real life, of course, they grow up to be those kids. Ron's like, shoo, I'm a prefect. Bugger off.
Yeah. Some things never change, but. So yeah, we get the instance where he gets the 50 pence piece, which Harry dismisses quickly, but Ron's just fascinated about because it's it's Muggle money, and he's like, "What is this?" That's pretty funny. I like that little sequence because Matt, you mentioned a while back. I don't remember what chapter it was. I think it was Diagon Alley about how wizard money makes no sense.
Less than zero. Yeah. None. Yeah,
it's completely illogical. I went back and watched that video, by the way. It's very interesting. It's just all the stuff that you can pick up and back, as well as background stuff that you don't look into. It's ridiculous how little logic it follows, or none, as you say.
we're introduced to the
logic.
Sorry, worth mentioning before we get to the actual Christmas morning as well. Small thing, but it does come up a few times. Wizard's chess.
Yes,
that's a thing that's introduced here, which is just normal chess but magical. And I, as a chess fan, I loved the idea of this. As a kid, I wanted a Wizard's chess set, just being able to knight to e5.
Yeah, and maybe you could answer this question for me, Callan, since you do play chess. The book notes that Ron had his own set and Harry had to borrow his from someone else. But why was Ron only carrying one set?
I was actually going to comment on that. I think the way it's kind of described here is I get the impression that when you buy a Wizard's chess set, you're literally just buying one color, and you're just kind of keeping that with you the way you have, say, a Yu-Gi-Oh deck or a Magic deck for people who play Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic. It's like you have your own...
or even
the reason why,
or more
the
sense
reason why
that your set can change color as well.
Well, well, I mean, the reason why it makes sense, and really, like when you're playing chess, a lot of times you just, you may start as white, but say you win that game, you'll just alternate. You know, it doesn't really matter who goes first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my point is it would have to change color because otherwise someone may have. You may both have a black set or a white set, and then you wouldn't be able to play it.
They're Magic.
It's easy to fit that in.
The reason why it makes sense though is because Ron's pieces trust him more because they know him, whereas Harry has just met him and they're like, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
send him, not me. They actively argue with him.
Yep.
Which is amazing.
And it is interesting because when viewed from this angle, it might even be possible that you can actually construct your own chess set by just picking up individual pieces. And it's like, I don't see what the point would be.
Now
with
we're really
the
getting with the Yu-Gi-Oh
chess,
comparisons.
But now it's like you're building a deck.
Oh god, yeah, it's interesting though. I love the concept, even though it is such a basic, one-to-one comparison. It's just normal chess but enchanted. It's a really enjoyable thing. And again, it's going to come up later on in the book, so it's worth noting here. But yeah, then we get Christmas
the
morning.
Strategist.
Yeah, yes,
Christmas
and also that because that is outside of chess never properly explored. I always wish that he had more to do on that front. But anyway, that's the strategist.
Of course, I did find the movie kind of funny. It's like they show the Wizard's chess set just as Hermione walks up. One of the pieces destroys the other, and Hermione's like, "That's absolutely barbaric." And Ron's just like, "That's Wizard's chess."
Yeah, it's a nice lead-in for that one. I like it. But yeah, we get
really has her her hair tightly wound there. Is it really that bad, Hermione? I mean, come on, it's a toy.
Little things. But it's Christmas morning, and in addition to the other gifts, we're introduced to the Weasley sweaters.
Yes.
The hand-woven Weasley sweaters.
Yeah, the way the twins interact with them all regarding those is heartwarming. I love that they're not just the comic relief; they also just happen to be so nice. Like they even when they're mocking people, they're family. It's a really nice feeling to watch those two at work.
What cements that for me is when he's when they're going to Percy and like, you're hanging with us today. It's Christmas, family day. I'm like,
precisely.
You feel that feel that right here,
Well, like in a weird way, it's like they're like their mom, but in like a different way. Their personality is different, but they have the same focus on like the family keeping it together. That's why they're the angriest at Percy when he does divorce himself from the rest of. But also the first to welcome him back. Yeah,
but also the two most bonded together out of all of the Weasleys, and also the ones that need bigging up on that front the most because of dramatic effect, as we'll get to later. There's a very specific reason she goes through and does all this stuff in her mind.
Yeah,
but we just with the rest of the presents as well. The fact that Harry's like, he's like, oh, I've got presents, and Ron's like, well, what did you expect? Turnips, because obviously Ron's pile is bigger. This is again an example of how he's everything's so familiar to him, everything's so mundane. Of course you get presents at Christmas. This is just normal, and Harry's so joyously, appreciating the fact that he's had them for the first time. And we get the fudge and the jumpers and the 50 pence, which is nice for the Dursleys. And there was one other one that I'm forgetting. Oh, chocolate frogs from Hermione, and the flute from Hagrid. That was the other one I was forgetting. The nice owl flute that it was omitted from the films, but I always liked it in the books and in the game as well. It was a nice little touch because it's the sort of thing Hagrid would send, and the fact that it's owl tune as well. It's that nudge just slightly away from reality. Very cool.
Yep. And the other thing that I find kind of interesting, and I wish they kept it up, is maybe that Harry actually really ended up really appreciating this flute and learned to play it properly.
Yeah, because it doesn't ever come up outside of this book. It just kind of gets dumped in the back of his trunk.
He gets a lot of cool gifts that he doesn't use.
Yeah.
Like the key anything ever that's serious.
He's got
or the knife.
Or more importantly, the mirror. It's open the damn gift.
Well, that's...
I recently read up on that mirror, and it just made me so sad because Oh
To
God,
be fair, though,
He didn't know, I know, and the way
I was gonna
Sirius
say,
phrases
to be
it
fair,
is,
that one at
makes
least
perfect
he
sense.
literally had no idea what it was because he never opened
Yeah,
it.
and
But the other ones he knows perfectly well what they are and just never uses them.
and the way
Yeah.
Sirius phrased it
Right.
was so moronic. It's like, use it, and I'll come find. I'll come straight up there immediately. And he's like, well, I'll never use that. Then throws it in the back of his. Oh God. Damn it, Sirius. Anyway, that's way later in the series. The final gift, and the one that's most worthy of note, of course, and talking about for the rest of this chapter, is the invisibility cloak, which is every kid's
Hallow.
dream. Yeah, and also the Hallow, which is it confuses me that this wasn't set up more than it was, because the Hallows don't really ever come up into the last book. But the Hallow,
What do you mean?
Death's cloak.
What do you mean by that? Wasn't set up more than what?
Well,
what it
you
was?
don't find out that it's really that significant until literally the last book.
That's what makes it so great. That's how you do a reveal. If you're saying that that's a flaw, I completely disagree.
come on!
I found it
Imagine
very
if they
retconny,
decided to.
personally.
Imagine if they decided to note in this book that Dumbledore had a very interesting looking wand.
No, well, yeah, I don't mean that it has to be on the nose about it. I just mean that to me, the Hallows were very insert post-fit books for me. Like, I never found them.
I disagree. We'll get to that
Yeah,
though with that book. I
interesting.
completely disagree.
Yeah, I just found it. Yeah,
I love the way she introduced all of that, especially the ring. That Harry's seen it before, but in like a way where he would never think it mattered.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah. See, the ring was less one. It was more the cloak for me. I was like, really? That's a thing? Okay, never mind. But yeah, we'll get to that one in the 7th book. Like I said, it'll be an interesting discussion. How many years away will that be, guys? Someone's done the math. But yeah, the cloak is the way it's described, if nothing else. The way that it's water woven into material. It's smoother than silk. The actual description for the material is. I just want it. Regardless of the fact that it can make you invisible. It sounds beautifully elegant and majestic, and I want one. Beyond the fact that you put it on and that's it. Half your body disappears. It's one of those moments that gets you most excited as a kid. Just being able to imagine putting this cloak on and all of the.
Interestingly enough, it's even though it's not the most powerful Hallow, it is like the best one to have. in a lot of ways.
Depends on the person, but yeah, I'd 100%
Right.
agree. But more to the point, it's so usable for Harry and personally. But he doesn't even immediately use it. He stows it away because obviously the twins come in and doesn't want anyone else to see it, which is a good call for the sake of security.
If the twins knew he had that, oh my God!
Oh dear.
They would be asking to borrow it, that's for sure. Or going on adventures with him, if nothing else. But they cajole Percy out the room, and they go and spend a family Christmas, Christmas holiday. We get with the teachers as well. We get the whole eating at the Christmas meal, which is about lunchtime, because then they go out snowballing afterwards, and it's just a nice day. It's a really nicely described, very simple day leading into the actual purpose of this chapter, which is introducing the Mirror of Erised.
Yeah, he puts the cloak on, and he at night and tries to sneak into the restricted section, which he does.
Very successfully, at least getting in anyway. That book terrified me as a kid. Did anyone else find that terrifying? Both the film, obviously, and also the idea of it in the library with the screaming. I did not appreciate it.
In the movie, yes, it did. As a kid, it scared me.
In the movie,
no.
definitely, yeah.
So in the books, I was like, "Ooh, God, loud noise in the silence."
The diary was creepy. The diary is creepy in book 2, but this book, whatever. Like, okay.
Yeah, I think the reason the movie scared me more is like you actually see a face come out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, that face
it's like
just
a jump scare.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
For me, it was that jump scare element that didn't quite work. It was just a little bit too on the nose. Whereas
for me, the jump scare worked in the book as well.
Man.
Like I was envisioning myself in that scene and like everything being perfectly quiet, and then no, slam the book
very
closed, and
loud.
it still carries on. It's like, God damn it, no.
But it's not horror. You don't go to sleep thinking about it. But did it startle you in the moment? Yeah, it startled me. But the diary's creepy though.
Yeah,
that's genuinely weird.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
But anyway,
but yeah, he escapes the restricted section after the Filch turns up. We get the Filch and Snape scene discussing people out of bed effectively. Interesting of note again, coming back to the cloak, talking about death qualities. I've heard a lot of people talk about the fact that it makes you in a certain sense lucky because he just happens to have a door to step behind and get out of that situation. You get out of jail free card that when you're wearing it. Does anyone think there's anything to that beyond just it happens to be common luck?
It's part of the legend, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying.
According to Xenophilius.
It's always been interesting to me that side, because if that's actually the case and that level of detail was always planned, then probably more on board with you, Matt, about the whole setup stuff. But it's
it merits a reread in terms of seeing whether or not this tracks. But according to the trio, when Xenophilius tells them that, they're like, yeah, nothing bad ever has happened to us while we're wearing it. It's only when we leave it abandoned or leave it somewhere else that harm comes to us or bad luck or whatever. It's never while they're wearing it.
Yeah, it was the one line I remember them mentioning about it, and it felt very kind of retroactive to me, but at the time.
And
going
fact,
through this
really,
now, it'd be interesting to see if it does track.
No, like I think maybe she did set that up, because there's one time where Malfoy got Harry, and like when he like stomped him on the nose, Petrificus total, like left him on the train, and Tonks came for him. Is that luck?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. There are instances. It's
really,
it is
that should have worked.
question.
As far as Malfoy plans go, that should have worked.
Yeah,
you know,
it is that question of, is it luck or is it is it actual? There's a magic to it. So it'd be interesting to discuss that. We'll watch it as we go through these books and track each instance and see what we think. But yeah, worthy of note. But yeah,
the combination of the invisibility cloak and Felix Felicis, you'd be damn near unstoppable.
Holy shit!
It's like, okay, all of reality and probability is now warped in my favor. I am a distortion in existence.
Yeah, talk about world-breaking, world-building stuff. Yeah,
we have a lot
example.
to say about Felix when we get to it. But
I for one don't hate it. I don't hate it.
I don't hate it, but it is definitely one of the biggest examples of a
lie.
problem. Here's a little bit of liquid that can alter reality. But anyway, and no one else is using it. But yeah, we get him stepping back, whether it be luck or magic. He steps back into this room that he finds and stumbles across the Mirror of Erised. It's a beautifully, to an extent, tragic, but it's just a touching scene for me. Like the visual of him, outside of the magical element of what is this, how can I get it to work, etc. Just looking in the mirror and seeing his family arrayed behind him, and the instant kind of captivating longing he feels. From that, she conveys the pull of the mirror before she ever describes it from Dumbledore's perspective as being that effective. That feel comes across before she spells it out for you. I think that's very powerful.
Well, a lot of that is down to the fact that he doesn't see them and instantly recognize them for what they are. Like he has to piece together, what am I looking at? And of course he works it out, but that's what makes that moment seem so enthralling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the obvious longing that you would feel for that, this is his family. This is the one thing he wants more than anything else, and it's so close. Yeah. The ethereal
trade anything to get.
Yeah, when he presses his hand against the glass of the mirror, and it's just he wants
to fall through. Yeah.
And he's not braced for it. It's one thing. It's like, hey, come in here. I got a mirror that'll show you your heart's desire. Like he just runs into it. Like it shows him that. So yeah.
And that, I think, is also the greatest danger of the Mirror of Erised, because if you know what it is coming in, you know better than to be enraptured by it. It's almost like an academic exercise if you know what it is. It's like, I want to see what my heart's deepest desire is just for the self-knowledge. But not knowing what the mirror is, thinking it's actually a portrait to the spirits of the dead, or maybe a window into another dimension that you could travel to, where it's like the things in there are attainable, that's where it becomes dangerous, because I imagine a lot of wizards were not knowing what the mirror was, wasted their entire lives trying to find some way to break through it. And
even knowing what it is, the fact that it can have such a pull and such a captivating and enthralling effect, I imagine just you talk about the idea of the people who are sitting there and wasting away their lives, even the ones who know they can what the mirror does, just the appeal of being able to in some way experience what they're seeing. It's going to be enthralling for many people. Any sort of addiction is. It's just an interesting kind of effect and a powerful one, and one I think she conveys very well in the chapter, both in this scene and the later ones we'll move through with both Ron and Dumbledore.
Yep. I would like to backtrack for a second and just mention the Snape, Filch going to fetch Snape when he finds out there's someone sneaking around in the library, because I love how it's another example of both brilliantly setting up the red herring of Snape being the villain, because it's like, oh, of course he'd set Filch as a watchman, but also connecting in with Snape actually being the good guy trying to keep an eye out for Dumbledore. He's like, okay, Filch, keep an eye out because Quirrell. But he's not going to say Quirrell to Filch because, he can't tip his hand.
So Harry's obviously so completely pulled in by this. I mean, the next morning he's not even considering Flamel. All he can think about is going to see his family again, and why wouldn't he? And he tells Ron about it, and they set up the adventure. Well, they'll bring him out together. They look for about an hour. They finally find it again, and Ron's own personal desire is so much more mundane. And I think that it's another kind of thestral effecty kind of thing, where your perspective is defined by the substance of your character, be it that you've had experience with death, and that's such a powerful specific thing to have dealt with. And here you've got the fact that Harry's had such a tragic and difficult life. Ron's mundanity in terms of how his family's, he has a complete family. He has obviously he's not wealthy, but he has most of what he would want in terms of the standards of life, but he doesn't have luxury. He doesn't have the he has a shadow of his brothers overcasting him.
He wants to be the best.
Yeah, he wants to be. He wants to step out of the shadow. He wants to be the best, and so that's why his primal desire, at least at this moment in his life, obviously it's going to change as he grows up, is that he gets to be the captain of the Quidditch team. Head boy, all that jazz. Whereas,
understandable when you have so much to live up to.
Yeah.
The other thing I would like to mention is just how it also represents, basically the basic character arc of so many of the other characters. Harry kind of had this down pat coming in because he was an orphan. He valued those things more deeply than anything else because he never had those and wanted them desperately. But for other people, they ended up taking these things for granted, and this ended up playing to their detriment. It's like, in a lot of ways, the character arc that Ron goes through, realizing that there are things more important than material success, when you actually learn about Dumbledore's history and Snape's history, that's the character arc that those poor bastards just took way too long to go through. It's like it's something that they should have figured out before they were 20, but instead both of them just dragged on for years after they left the school, and it led to their greatest mistakes, their greatest losses, because they were so focused on that material goal that they forgot about the emotional things that they valued. Sorry,
if for no other reason, the fact that their material goals that they were aiming for were anything but mundane, that they were the ultimate magical powers. So they had that kind of going for them in the fact that they were drawn along that path far longer, because what can distract you from that? That it takes a lot to look away from the most powerful artifacts in existence, as opposed to just being head boy. If nothing else, you're going to grow out of the desire of seeing head boy and captain of the Quidditch team as the highest kind of quote unquote rank. You'll just grow out of that biologically. But with them, they were captivated by the magical appeal.
Well, Ron doesn't want those things for the sake of those things. He wants them because it'll increase his status in the family that's already had that kind of success.
Yeah. So, and the fact that he can grow out of that because of what he learns along the journey. He could have been a Percy, like you say. He could have just been the Minister of Magic later on if he looked in the mirror. But he values and learns the value of all of his friends and his own worth outside of comparing himself to others. It's the fact that it's set up here in this chapter is beside the point almost, because the focus is on Harry here in the mirror itself. But I just like the fact that Ron's is so mundane, because Ron could have easily had a lofty desire that in a more abstract sense like Harry does, but it's not, because he's a normal kid. He's had a normal life. He's a magical kid obviously, but for him it's normal.
I feel like it's only like the kids like Harry or Luna or Neville, like the ones that have deeper pasts, that would see something similar to what Harry and Dumbledore see when they look into it. Like that's that thread that binds them. Yeah. That's why they're deeper characters at the end of the day.
Which is why I talk about the Thestrals, because it's the fact that their past and their experiences have given them more substance when it comes to this kind of perspective-based thing. They've known more.
They've not had normal upbringing, so they wouldn't see normal things in the mirror.
If nothing else, yeah.
One little detail that I completely forgot about, because I haven't read this chapter in years, is that when Harry shows Ron the mirror of Erised and the two of them are looking at it, they actually start getting into a little bit of a fight where they try to push each other out of the way. And it's like, it's one of those little Deagle and Smeagol fighting over the ring. And it's another little bit that carries over to another character, namely Voldemort. Voldemort never stopped trying to shove people away from the mirror of Erised because he wanted to look in. He followed through on that and just shoved, no, mine.
It's a nice, you're right to mention the ring, and it's a nice little similar effect, because it's, again, obviously they're not going any further than they do with the little shift and they get distracted if nothing else, but the pull of it even lends to the fact that you want to look at it a bit longer. I want to look at it a bit longer. I don't shove, these are friends. This is the first time they've had this kind of this
also creepily, Dumbledore's watching this.
Yes, yeah.
Well, no, that's
worth
not
noting.
the one.
No, he is watching it.
Oh wait.
He watches all three.
Yes.
Yeah, he watches all three. He doesn't appear in this one.
Three,
it's the next night he turns up, Evan. Yeah, but it's he's right. He's sat there watching it in the background, like,
Yeah.
He does. There's a lot of Dumbledore not doing things in this book, even all of the other books. He just kind of sits back and
he doesn't track.
Oh, Harry's swinging around on his broom for
Literally,
5 minutes straight. I'll just stand here.
The climax happens because he's called away on ministry business or something. Yeah,
and also he's sort of aware. He goes. He sees Hermione and Ron and is like, oh, he's gone after the stone, hasn't he? He's like, oh well, it's fine, it's good. It's like, well, if you knew, why were you letting that happen? It's very strange.
I think the other thing to consider is the fact that Dumbledore's got an agenda where Harry's concerned. He's actually when you think about what he does in his response to Harry, it's like starting off being very hands off, but gradually stepping in more and more and more. He's basically trying to egg on Harry's adventurous curiosity and his heroic tendencies, because those are the traits that he needs Harry to have when the time comes.
Yeah, he's very much manipulating him and shaping him into not a weapon, but a person that can basically contend with Voldemort, because all along he's had this kind of vague plan attached to him. It's a good example of moral, or at least necessary manipulation from a good character. You don't get it very often. Get that in most works of fiction. He would be played as in a villainous light, but it's not true for Dumbledore.
Mm-hmm.
Not
I make no apologies for these trials, my student. You will come to see how necessary they are.
It's one of those things.
Yeah.
But it's you're right though about again, specifically about that ring moment where they are struggling. I like that it brings a bit of conflict into those two based on their desires. They're not completely. They're
not in lockstep.
Yeah, they're not quite up that point yet, and obviously they'll fall out again in the future in two major occurrences, obviously. But this is the first time we see that, and I like that it's attached to the fact that they are being shown their greatest desires in front of them, and that's what's causing them to.
I'm just gonna say, I see Ron's point more than Harry's, though.
Oh yeah,
like Harry did have it all to himself the prior night.
Yeah, it's like so Ron, he lets Ron have it for like 5 seconds, and then no, move. I want to see my parents.
This is probably the only time I'm ever gonna side with Ron over Harry. I'm just saying that. But
yeah, that is rare. He's rarely in the right, Ron, when it comes to specifically those two, anyway. Yeah. But yeah, so this is followed up as well by an amusing moment.
Third night.
Before the third night, though, there's an amusing moment that I don't know. I think it must have been the audiobook that made it so funny to me. But does the invisibility work, or does the cloak work on cats? At that moment, I always get a chuckle. It gets a chuckle from me because of, I think, the audiobook, the way Stephen Fry delivers that on the UK side. Anyway, it was really funny. I read it back and thought, I remember listening to that. But yeah, I had to mention that. Anyway.
Memories.
Funny moment. Because does it work on cats?
Who knows? But anyway, that leads us into the third night. Harry goes again, this time by himself.
Yeah,
stares at some more, and this time this is when
Dumbledore by himself. Yeah, he thinks.
Well, he
like
thinks.
that.
He thinks.
Yeah.
But Ron warns him as well. He's like, don't go back. There's something weird about it. He's got that weird sense about it that Harry hasn't got, because Ron's not been quite pulled in by it because of the kind of mundanity of his desire. It's not as captivating.
Harry's a very obsessive person, as we find out in the series. So this is like in character for him, even though it's like the burgeoning of that.
That and the fact that it's more captivating for him because his is so obviously unachievable, whereas Ron's isn't.
Of course,
yeah. Ron
is right. Ron is right to warn him, and he doesn't listen, which is par for the course with them.
It's also another interesting parallel because I notice a commonality between this and their experience with the Dementors. With Harry, he is hit super hard by the Dementors because he's got so many traumatic memories in his past. Whereas Ron, he's like, I felt weird, like I would never be cheerful again. But he wasn't forced to relive any specifically traumatizing moments because most of his life up to this point has been pretty good. And those traumatizing moments that did happen, he's come to terms with because they happened relatively recently and he was in a position where he could do something about it. Whereas Harry is like reliving helpless victimhood.
Mm. But yeah, regardless of Ron, warning him, Harry goes back. He ignores him because, as you said, Matt, very, very obsessive person. Some might say ludicrously so, but I suppose it lends him.
Not at this point.
Not at this point, but later on.
Yeah. Given his desire, yeah.
And it lends itself to his detective's nature as well. It fits the character, if nothing else. If nothing else. I've said that way too many times today. Anyway.
I was just thinking that when you started saying
as Evan says, this is the scene for Dumbledore. And it's interesting because it's a page and a half long, but in my head it goes on and on and on and on because it's set by the pace of Dumbledore's kind of cadence. You know, you hear Dumbledore saying these lines and you don't read further until it's kind of played out in your head properly. Because I'd forgotten how short it was. You know, it is literally a page and a half, and to me, I look back and think it dominates the chapter. To an extent.
Yeah. I do think Connor was right though. Like when you have that memory tethered to Richard Harris's performance and how like just captivating he is as Dumbledore, like you tend to think, because it's not even a long scene in the movie, you know, but it's one of the more memorable ones.
Yeah,
it's just
the moment
that
kind of hangs in the film. He has that gravitas, as you say. It's perfect for it, and yeah, you're probably right. It does play back as in terms of the film equivalent. But I get the feeling because I always remember feeling that Harris captured Dumbledore perfectly. So I must have had at least some parity in performance in my head beforehand as well.
Oh yeah, with the book.
Yeah,
yeah.
But you're definitely right. You definitely kind of reinforced that from watching the film.
Richard Harris probably assuming even if he hadn't died, we're right. You're right. He would have had some serious problems with the stunt work later in the series because Voldemort does do some. Sorry, Dumbledore. Wow, Dumbledore does do some really physically active things later in the series, and Harris clearly wasn't up for it because of how old he was. But he was the perfect Dumbledore for the first couple of movies because at that stage, that's what the character needed to be. He's like this background figure of wisdom and sagacity.
Mm-hmm. I also really love his line where it's like when Harry asks him, like, "How long have you been? Like, how did you hear?" And he just responds with, "I don't need a cloak to be invisible."
Yes, very Dumbledore line. It's like, it reminds me of the other one where it says, "I'm rather cleverer than most wizards," or something like. If you'll permit me, he says a line like that, and that always reminds you of this. It goes in that pile.
I think he said something like, "Forgive the unseemly lack of modesty, but being rather cleverer than most men."
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's something like that along those lines. And it's this definitely goes in that pile. He's appropriately immodest.
Fast forwarding to the 6th movie, it's like even though this change was a bit of a change, kind of fucked up the whole Draco knowing where Dumbledore is in the astronomy tower. One of my favorite little moments from the movie was Harry saying, "But sir, I thought you couldn't apparate inside Hogwarts." And Dumbledore responds with, "Well, being me has its privileges." It's
that's
it's
the biggest change that I approve of. I approve of that one. Yeah.
And it also makes perfect sense to me from a logistical standpoint because if anyone can penetrate the defensive wards around Hogwarts, it should be the guy who set them.
Well, not only that, but the headmaster. The fact that they're going to be set so that he can get around them in the first place. It makes sense, and that's why it never bothered me either. But yeah, the scene itself plays out like it's one of my favorite moments in both the book and the film, particularly because of it's probably one of Harris's standout moments in his performances overall. It's if nothing else, we have to mention the fact it's the first time that Harry and Dumbledore have kind of a scene together. That's
true.
This is their first moment of. I mean, they've been present in one another's company before, especially at the start of the book from Dumbledore's perspective. But it's the first kind of
moment.
Singled out moment where they are talking to each other one on one.
A proper conversation.
Yeah. This is the first time that they actually shared a moment. Or
when he gives him any kind of teacherly advice, actually speaks to him about something relevant to the both of them. Yeah.
And this is one of the bigger examples of that as well. Even after you consider everything that comes later in the books, this is a very, very effective life lesson. It kind of sets him up as that Merlin, that Yoda.
It doesn't really happen again. It doesn't really happen again until in the 4th book, I feel like.
And even then, there are elements where it's more like expositionary teaching, whereas as opposed to philosophical.
Maybe a little bit at the end of Chamber, but other than that, Dumbledore's very removed from Harry, as we've said. For the first half of the series, or if you want to look at it that way, the first third of it, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But we also. Oh, sorry, Connor. What were you going to say?
I was just going to carry on to the moment where Harry asks Dumbledore what he sees when he looks in the mirror, and it's just Dumbledore is very clearly lying for those. Once we find out the later storyline, it's like
Harry knows he's lying or suspects he is.
It was a very personal question. Is where the chapter ends, and we all know now, of course, that he's looking in that mirror and seeing Ariana.
He's seeing the exact same thing.
Or the whole family.
Well, the whole family, of course, but specifically Ariana, because that's the one he's specifically lost. But yeah,
I'm inclined to think it's the same thing as Harry, because like he lost his mom and his dad. Well, over like in different ways, not all in one event. But
over the
whole
course,
family
yeah.
was in shambles.
Yeah, and yeah, you're definitely right there as well. Because if nothing else, it's poetically, there's that parallel, that parity with the two. They have the fact that it's that kind of joining moment where Dumbledore sees not himself and Harry because they're very different people, but he sees the kind of journey that he's going on and wants to kind of correct. Not past mistakes, because Voldemort isn't his past mistake, but the course. He wants to help the next generation and help them not make those same mistakes. That sells that idea for me.
One moment that I kind of created in my head that just doesn't fit in anywhere, but I really wish it could, is just this image of Harry later on in the series, I don't know where, just pressing some wool socks into Dumbledore's hands and then giving him a hug.
And a dream sequence, I guess. Yeah. When else? Yeah, he could send Dobby with those socks any old time, and he'd go, Professor Dumbledore said these are from Harry Potter. That would happen.
Oh god, that must be horrible for Dobby though. It's like I have to relinquish the socks. My favorite of all items. Yeah. But yeah, that's the kind of close of the chapter. It ends with Harry kind of wondering. Oh, I suppose he was probably lying, but personal question. What would you guys see in the mirror? Do you reckon?
Chocolate cake. I don't know. No.
It's a difficult question because, as you said before the recording, Matt, it gives you a more honest answer than most people are capable of.
I feel that the mirror shows you what you want, even if you don't know that's what you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
It's like my obvious answer would be like myself as head of Lucasfilm, but I know that's probably not what I would see. There's probably something else that has deeper meaning to me because there are certain values that I really uphold. Like one of the reasons why I kind of approve of myself being sorted Hufflepuff is because I realize that the Hufflepuff house is the house whose ideology I agree with most. To me, loyalty and dedication are the highest ideals.
Indeed.
So it's like, what would I see? Whatever I saw would probably correspond with that.
Difficult to kind of visualize.
Probably just going to say the same thing as Harry to me. It seems like that's the right answer. You know what I mean? Just whatever it is that really makes you complete as a person, which for most people, as mundane as it is like their family, being happy and intact. That's what it would be for me.
Yeah, family and
for
friends.
me, it's I probably see family, friends, and probably
particularly if you've
probably
lost one that's close to you. Yeah, right.
A possible a partner, that would
past or future family basically, because there are people obviously who don't have that connection with their present family, but would want one in the future, and it would be some sort of amalgamation of that for them. But yeah, I don't know what I would see. I would see someone giving me a pair of socks. But yeah, anyway, what would you guys see, guys? Put it in the comments what you think you would see in the mirror of Erised down below. And let us know your thoughts on the chapter. Anything we haven't covered or anything we've covered but you want to cover in greater detail, I'm ready for, and I still don't have an outro.
Great Jedi 91. We all believe that. Have a nice day.
Evan Nova 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later, and mischief managed.
It was only when I was back in bed that it struck me that Callan might not have been quite truthful. But then I thought, as I shoved Bella off my pillow, it had been quite a personal question.
I'm assuming you mean your cat.
Yes.
Just for clarity. See ya.